The Phillies' 9-game winning streak is over, but much more importantly, we have a major Zack Wheeler problem. I'll tell you what it is and how they could possibly fix it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's episode is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. We're going to get into a conversation about Trey Turner in the month of August. Has he been getting covered up for by the team's success in this month? We're also going to look at the rotation and really the pitching staff in general because it's going to involve the bullpen. What would that look like in October? Because you really only need 3, maybe 4 starting pitchers, and you've started to get a little bit more out of the back end of the rotation. But our biggest issue right now is at the top of the rotation feels a lot less certain. The Phillies go out to Seattle, and they lose what should have been an unsurprising game in performance standing, right? You win an emotional game on Sunday. Everything goes your way in the 9th inning. You're down to your final strike 5 times. You score 6 runs with 2 outs. You're on a 9-game win streak, and then you jump on a plane and you head across the country. The emotional letdown game is a real thing in sports. The East Coast, the West Coast, and vice versa. Travel is a real thing in sports. This was the perfect storm for a letdown game, especially against the team, the Seattle Mariners, that have given up like 60 runs in their past week's worth of games. This should not have been surprising because it's the ebbs and flows of sport. But the Phillies have been rolling, and you don't really play for the illogical, hey, a trend has been going good, so it has to go bad eventually, right? There's not technically logic to that. There's history to it, there's feel to it, but that's kind of just the gut feeling more than anything. So I know I didn't come on the podcast yesterday and say, well, expect the Phillies to get blown out tonight, but it shouldn't have been a huge surprise that they hit a letdown spot. It's also not that big of a deal. They've won 9 of their last 10 now. That's still a red-hot stretch. Like, losing 1 game in Seattle doesn't undo the 9-game win streak where everything was going their way, 3 straight sweeps. So what could possibly be the problem? Well, the problem is that Zack Wheeler gave up 8 earned over 4 innings worth of work and got absolutely shelled. He was giving up the long ball. He wasn't spotting anything well. And this has been a bit of a trend for Zack Wheeler. He has not been good recently. You look back at his last 5 starts or so, and he's got an ERA over 7. That is not Zack Wheeler. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a Scooby-Doo mystery, and I've got to pull the mask off and see who it actually is behind these hijinks. Because that can't possibly be the perennial Cy Young contender. Zack Wheeler should have been all-star starter. Well, not all-star starter because he's a pitcher, but should have been all-star selected. Like, this dude has been as solid gets, as consistent gets. His bad months have been in the mid-4s. And that's counting the times where he had to get shut down with his shoulder fatigue or thoracic outlet syndrome issue in the blood clot last year. The stuff that he's dealt with in Philadelphia, his worst months have been mid-4 ERA. The stretch that he's on right now is arguably his worst stretch as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. And this is an issue because the strength of this team has always been the top 3 in the rotation. If you could start a playoff series with Christopher Sanchez, Zack Wheeler, and Jesus Luzardo, you can beat just about anybody. And when I say just about anybody, the just about comes pretty much from the Dodgers. Anyone outside of them, you can beat anybody. You really can. And heck, they almost beat LA last year. And part of it was those guys at the top, even though you didn't have Wheeler for that postseason series. So I guess there's something comforting in that you played the Dodgers so tight last year, even without Wheeler as an option, because he was dealing with the blood clot and he was done for the rest of the year following that issue in August. But you want Wheeler this year. You need Wheeler this year because at least last year the offense was a little bit more consistent than what you've seen over the full body of work. I'm not talking about what you've seen over the past week and a half where they've been an unstoppable force of baseball nature. I'm talking about who this team truly is over the course of the full regular season. It's been a roller coaster. The one place where you've gotten like real consistency has been Those top three in the rotation. But now we're in a weird spot with Wheeler because this also isn't just like 2 or 3 starts. No, this is a large sample size of him struggling. So, first, let's talk about what the issue could be, and then we'll get into what the solutions are. I've already told you why this is dire because the Philadelphia Phillies, mark my words, are not winning anything in the postseason without Zack Wheeler. Or I should say anything of note. Could they win a wild card series? Sure. Could they win an NLDS series if it's not matched up against the Dodgers? I suppose they could do that. But without Zack Wheeler, what are we doing it for? Because you're not winning the National League and you're not winning the World Series. And that's where the bar is for the Philadelphia Phillies. High-level postseason success. You will not get there without Zack Wheeler being really good Zack Wheeler. So, am I saying season over? No. Am I saying season a lot more difficult looking if Wheeler doesn't figure it out? Absolutely, yes. My concern level on him? Probably a 7, maybe an 8 out of 10. Like, we're up there because we have not seen this in his time with the Phillies. He's been basically like the North Star of this Philadelphia Phillies team. If all else fails, point to Zack Wheeler. He's going to be there. He's going to get you what you need on the mound to have a chance to compete and win in ball games. Day in and day out. That's just who he's been. Not only has he been so good, he's been so consistently good. That's what has made him special. So, what could it be? There's a couple of options. I'm going to rule one out right off the bat. Injury. Could he be dealing with something? The first thought, everyone's like, okay, well, what's hurt right now? Can we put him on the injured list for a couple days, like a 10-day injured list stint, and have him figure something out? Well, he said after the game last night that he feels fine physically. That's a weird thing. I believe he called it frustrating, is that he feels fine physically. I trust Zack Wheeler's evaluation of how he feels. Right? If he says he's fine, he's fine. I know sometimes you see these, like, he's more of the old school pitcher where they won't tell you if anything's wrong with him. But at this point in his career, 36 years old, just dealt with a blood clot last year, serious medical situation. I think he knows well enough that if he was feeling something, he'd be saying something. Right? You don't want to have anything seriously wrong with you or really anything wrong with you that could be hurting you and the team and not disclose it to team personnel, say it. Like, I don't think he's lying to you. I think he feels fine. The thing that backs that up is the velocity last night. There has not been a major downtick in really any of these spots in this stretch where he's been struggling. He's had good velocity. He was averaging 96 last night. We've seen him touch higher than that. Normally, if it's something where it's like, hey, I've got dead arm is such a catch-all term, but really basically what it means is you're getting burnt out. You can't really feel it. It's a weird sensation to describe. It's just like ball's not coming out the way it should. I don't have the zip that I normally do. That's normally indicated by like a 2 to 3 mile an hour average drop in fastball velocity. He hasn't really had that. He's had a little bit of a dip maybe, but sometimes that's within the realm of normal variance to me, what we've seen from Zack Wheeler. So I'm willing to rule out injury. I don't think he's hurt. I don't think he's hiding anything. Does that mean they can't do a phantom injured list stint? Not necessarily. And we'll talk about that when we get to solutions. But I don't think it's injury. There's another option, which I think is even less likely than injury. Maybe this is me coping. Maybe this is me not wanting to believe. I don't think Zack Wheeler just woke up a couple weeks ago and forgot how to pitch. Like, sure, is he old? Yes. All due respect. 36. It's old in baseball years. It's not old in regular people years. But he's had a long career. That's why he's been considering retirement at the end of this contract that he's on right now with the Phillies. Did he hit a wall where it's just like, Father Time gets everybody, and it came for Zack Wheeler? There's no way the fall off happened that quick. I refuse to believe that's a real possibility that this dude just hit a wall like that. So I don't think that's the case. So it leads us to 2 much more likely scenarios for what's going on. One, there's a mechanical imbalance somewhere. Could he be feeling a little bit of fatigue, and because of that, he's lost some of his mechanics and he needs to get back to that because command has been one of his issues? Absolutely a possibility. I would put that high on the list. The other one that's really intriguing is the tipping pitches thing, because the swings that people are getting off on his pitches, especially off speed, not typical of what you see from Zack Wheeler. He said as well last night, it feels like the fastball is the only thing I can control right now. So that points to the command thing. I'm taking him at his word. But I wonder if there's any tipping pitches going on, something he's doing that's giving it away. He and JT Realmuto both brought it up after the game, said they're going to look at it. So those would be my biggest two: tipping pitches or some mechanical imbalance due to fatigue, not injury, fatigue. So what are the solutions? Well, this is very much like our Aaron Nola conversation from earlier on in the season. You don't really have many solutions. Nestor Cortez has not thrown yet as a member of the Phillies, and he's down in the minors. If he throws and looks good, sure, you could bring him up. That's probably not going to be for another week or two. He will probably be one of the 2 September call-ups that they get, and while that is close-ish, it's not close enough that it could fix Zack Wheeler by the next start by giving him an extra day. You could skip a start and go with like a bullpen game or something like that. Or you could throw another guy on short rest. Well, I don't want to do it with Painter. I don't want to do it with Nola, who's got a lot of tread on, or like wear and tear on the tires. I don't want to do it with Luzardo, who's pitched a lot of innings this year and has an injury history. And I don't want to do it with Sanchez, who's also been your workhorse, and you don't want to burn him out. Like, I don't want to put any more on those guys or the bullpen for that matter. A bullpen game while you're stuck out west this early on in a West Coast road trip where you're going to play 9 games and you're in a tight postseason push race, I don't want to burn the pen. We almost had Garrett Stubbs pitching in the 10th inning of a game just a couple of weeks ago. You're thin in the bullpen. So your really only solution is injured list and call up somebody like an Alan Ronhell, skip a start and go with Alan Ronhell to actually make a start, which I already told you I don't really like burning other arms, and I feel like he's not going to get deep into ball games, or you let Zack Wheeler pitch his way out of it. Has he earned that right? Yes. But at some point, you got to look at it and say, well, at 36, is that what's best for you? Are we creating more of a problem by continuing to pitch you? Is this bad for your body? Like, we got to evaluate exactly what it is. I bet you what the Phillies are going to do is they're going to let him make his next start because they did that with Aaron Nola for so long. Why would Zack Wheeler, who has a much better resume recently, not get the same benefit to go out there and work his way through it? I suppose he's earned that, but he's not really helping the team win right now. My thing is, I don't need him to help him win. I don't need him to help the team win now. I need him to help the team win in October. And if we have to give up the chances to win games now for a better chance to win in October, I would do that. I just don't know what that is. For me, the solution I would pick is Nestor Cortez as part of a 6-man rotation for the rest of the year. But I can't say that without him having thrown a competitive pitch with the Phillies organization, even at the minor league level. So that'll take time. If this continues, that's what I would do. But in the moment, Wheeler's got to make his next start. And you just got to cross your fingers and pray that it's better, because what you've seen recently from him is not ideal. The good news is his next start would be against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, one of the worst teams in baseball. Great for a get-right spot. But we got to see if it's competition or if it's just him not being able to throw well right now, and that's certainly what it looks like to me. Whatever you believe the input is, they're very minimal solutions. And it's very scary to consider the Phillies' ceiling without Zack Wheeler because it's not very high, or at least not very high compared to some of the other teams competing for a World Series this year. So that's the Phillies' Zack Wheeler problem. He will be the biggest guy to watch as far as a star player needing to step it up as we continue in the month of August and head towards the month of September. But even without Zack Wheeler, this team made up enough ground with the 9-game win streak that they should be in October. So when you get there, it's time to take our first consideration of what you do with the arms you have. Somebody's got to move. And in a game of musical chairs, could the rookie be the odd man out? We'll talk about Andrew Painter's role, Aaron Nola's role, and how things could shuffle for a postseason series or set of postseason series as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network.
I was juggling a couple different apps the other day, and then I realized to myself, Why don't I just use our friends at Clutch Parlays? Because that is their expertise. Instead of going to multiple different apps to check different injuries and betting lines, I can see it all in one with our friends at Clutch Parlays. And a little bit of bonus there is they give you data to back their bets. Maybe you want to do a double for a star player that night. They can give you the percentage of what they hit on for that exact bet. And that's why I love our friends at Clutch Parlays. But here's the offer for you. Find the best line and build smarter parlays. Track every bet and make more informed betting decisions, all with ClutchParlays.com. Right now, Clutch Parlays is offering a great deal for Locked On listeners. Your first month free on a monthly plan. They want to make sure that you get a real chance to try it out and see what it can do for you. Go to ClutchParlays.com today and use code Locked On to claim it. ClutchParlays.com. Bring together live odds, line shopping, predictions, bet tracking, analytics in one place so you can bet with more confidence.
So let's talk about how things would shift around come October. This, of course, is assuming the Philadelphia Phillies find their way into the postseason. Also, if there's any sticklers out there, yes, I know the postseason starts end of September. I'm just saying October is a catch-all term. You know what I mean, all right? Let's not be nitpicky, okay? I was up till 1 a.m. last night watching the Phillies get their teeth kicked in out in Seattle. So just give me this one, all right? When the postseason comes, there are going to have to be changes to the way the pitching staff is used. There just are. It happens with every team because you're not going with the same strategy that you used to get through 162. It's like the pace you use for a marathon versus the pace you use for a sprint. If you ran the same mile an hour, you're going to lose one of those races. Well, if you flip-flop them, you're going to lose both of those races. With that, a focus on the pitching staff comes into real focus. You're going to hit the same position players. You might be a little bit more liberal with the in-game changes that you make defensively, running the bases, pinch hitting, all of that stuff. But the real change comes from the pitching strategy. For an average team, you'd like to have 4 starters that you can use in the postseason. That would be the ideal. If you could get that, great. If not, well, you're not necessarily screwed. Okay, you can go with 3 guys and try and make your way through. It just leaves you very little margin for error, which is why it's hugely important that Zack Wheeler is available to throw and throw well, because the Phillies don't exactly have the opportunity to go to 4 guys. Maybe they do. It depends how much you trust what Aaron Nola and Andrew Painter have done recently. They've been much better. Aaron Nola threw in the postseason last year. He looked pretty solid in his minimal use against the Dodgers in the NLDS. Does that mean that's how he's going to look this year? Not necessarily, but he's been much better lately. Everything you've seen lately from Aaron Nola, stock way up. But where it gets interesting is that Andrew Painter has been showcasing some really good stuff recently. And though the results don't look quite as good as what you've gotten out of Nola, the stuff seems like, according to the deeper analytics, which I don't live in that world, man. Like, I know a good ball player when I see one. I've been watching the sport for a long time. I don't need the ex-WABA or whatever, all of this stuff, the stuff plus. You don't need to bring me a pamphlet on who's good and who's not. You can watch and you can tell. Andrew Painter and Aaron Nola have both been much better. But all the stuff plus people around baseball will tell you that Aaron Nola's got a cap based on what he has. The knuckle curve has been really good. Outside of that, everything else is kind of, run of the mill at this point in his career. Andrew Painter, maybe a higher ceiling in that department. So that's where the conversation gets interesting. Jesus Luzardo, Christopher Sanchez, and Zack Wheeler, as long as he is good to go, right? We're assuming that Wheeler figures it out in this instance because I like to look on the bright side. I think it's a good way to handle life. I think it's a good way to handle baseball. If those 3 guys are all throwing well and there's no, knock on wood, injuries or issues or anything like that between now and the end of the year, those 3 guys are obviously starting in a postseason series. Whether it's the Wild Card Series, the NLDS, CS, World Series, they're getting the ball. They're on the rubber to start a game. But ideally, you'd like to have 4. And the Phillies have now kind of started to open their world to that opportunity, with Nola being better recently and Painter being better recently. You also have a look at potential September call-ups. Could it be 2 pitchers? I don't really think you need any other position players to come up, So I would imagine that the two players that you bring up are pitchers. Maybe it's an Alan Ronhell. Maybe it's a Nestor Cortez, depending on how he throws down there. Maybe it's a Gage Wood. That would be one of those kind of shock factor moves that you could do in early September and say, hey, welcome to the show, kid. We need you to help us. He would be more of a bullpen guy, of course, because you're not calling up somebody to take Painter or Nola's spot right now. They've been good enough to hold it. So if you bring anybody up in the September call-ups, a guy like Nestor Cortez could lengthen the rotation, but I would expect a guy like Gage Wood or Alan Ronhell to add to the bullpen somehow. But then you get to the postseason, it's like, who do you trust? So you've got those three guys I mentioned that would be able to make starts in a postseason game. And you say, okay, I feel really good about giving either of them, or any of them, I should say, the ball. If you had to pick a fourth guy, for me, it's not really much of a conversation. It's Aaron Nola, and it's not particularly close. And this is not me saying that Aaron Nola is in the class of those other three guys. He's not anymore. But he's a guy that's pitched in the postseason, that has a resume, that has gone through many major league seasons, that has faced all of these teams and all these batters, and knows what the environment of the postseason is like. That information, that experience is invaluable. Remember, last year he did not have a great year. He threw well in his little appearance in the postseason against the Dodgers. Andrew Painter has never pitched in the postseason. He hasn't really pitched in too many high leverage games at all in general for the Phillies since he's been up with the Major League Club this year. And he just got sent down a couple months ago. This is not a guy that I look at and say, okay, I feel very comfortable handing him the ball in a postseason game. It could be win or go home or something of that nature. It doesn't mean, and I'm saying to start, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have a spot on this team, because he's earned a spot on the playoff roster, at least the way he looks right now. But I'm giving the ball to Nola 10 times out of 10. You could tell me I'm crazy because Painter has better stuff. I'd rather in the postseason go with the vet over the rookie. I think that's pretty simple. You are more than welcome to disagree, but for me, it's a non-starter to pick a guy with that level of experience versus an Aaron Nola who's been doing this for a long time. So my four in the starting rotation would be, again, Nola, Wheeler, Sanchez, and I almost said Suarez for a second. I miss you, Ranger. And Luzardo. Then what do you do with Andrew Painter? Why is he the one that you would choose to, the only other option is, move to the bullpen? Well, here's why it's not Nola. This is another reason why Nola gets the ball as a starter. Because if you move Nola to the bullpen, what you're doing is you're taking a guy that sits like 92, 93 at this point, maybe touching 94 occasionally, and you put him in the bullpen for, so what, his stuff plays up to 95, 96? Okay. A lot of guys out of pens are throwing 98, 99, 100 right now. 95, 96 is not fast by major league bullpen standards in the modern game. On the other hand, you have Andrew Painter who can run it up to 99, 100. And then you put him in the bullpen and you say, okay, kid, let it rip for an inning. That could play up to triple digits regularly. Or even if it's like, say, he sits 99, 100 out of the pen if he got one inning worth of work. That's a lot more valuable of a velocity increase, and the stuff plays a lot better in a singular inning than what you see from Aaron Nola. He's a great candidate, actually, to go to the bullpen. Andrew Painter is. Now, where do you use him? Probably the fifth or sixth inning if you get into trouble. Or if you go extras, and we saw that against the Dodgers last year, you can go to him in spots where you're like, okay, we don't really have many other options. But if you had to ask me right now, seventh inning of a tie ball game in the postseason, one person gets that inning, and you have a couple of options. Orion Kirkring, Jose Alvarado, or Andrew Painter. I'm giving that ball to Andrew Painter. Heck, I might give it to him over Tim Mayza. Jonathan Bowling gets it before him. Brooks Raley gets it before him. Joan Duran gets it before him. But is he fourth? He very well could be, especially if he continues to pitch like this. Alex McFarland's really interesting, but I haven't seen enough from him yet. I'd like to see him on the postseason roster, but like Painter is going to be a guy that could help this team in the postseason this year. I just don't think it's as a starter. So I would move him to the bullpen. I would use him in lower leverage spots. Not that every spot isn't leverage when it comes to postseason baseball. And I think his stuff could really play up. And that does not mean for the rest of his career he's a reliever. It does not change his trajectory as a starter on this team. He just seems to be the odd man out based on experience. And he hasn't done enough this year where I'm like, well, screw experience. He's Paul Skeens, Jacob Mizorowski. Like, you can just throw him out there. It doesn't matter. He hasn't been that good. Like, not even close to that good. So, Painter goes to the pen. You call up some other arms to help. You use September as kind of a proving ground for the other guys. And then once you have stuff like locked down, maybe you can even try it with Painter in the final week or two of the regular season. That would be determined by how much the Phillies are confidently in postseason position. But that would be the move that I would make once you get to the postseason, because I do believe this team has done enough to be in prime position to make it to the postseason. So things are trending towards October. And that's because the team's been so good in August. But is there a guy that's been covered up by the success of the team? Should somebody be buying the steak dinners while they're out on the road in Seattle? Well, if there's someone I could point to, it would be the guy that's been batting leadoff or close to leadoff. And that's one Trey Turner. What has Trey been doing? Well, not much. And the errors last night were just the most recent example of it. We'll talk about him getting covered up and why he needs to step up big time down the stretch as well as we continue today's episode. Let's talk about our friends over at Kalshi, because on Kalshi, you can make baseball season more this year. Of course, they are America's #1 prediction market platform, and you can trade on every single game. You got late night action out in Seattle tonight. The Phils had won 9 straight heading into last night's loss, and now they're out there taking on the M's, and you say, okay, Nola on the mound. He's been throwing better lately. We were just talking about him. What do you say we trade on a bounce-back performance for those Fightins out there on the West Coast? So you just go to the baseball tab on the Kalshi app, and you can look down and say, oh, okay, let's find Philadelphia here. They're a little bit further down because they're one of the later games. They're trading at a 50% chance to win. Okay, a $100 trade on that, that's going to pay you out $196.56. That's worth staying up late for, isn't it? Well, everything on Kalshi is worth it, because on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. Let's talk about our friends over at Stance next. Stance is the absolute best in your footwear, and they are taking care of your feet with the best socks in the game. They also want us to make sure that we make time in today's episode for the Everyday Icon, which is presented by Stance. As the official sock partner of Major League Baseball, Stance knows greatness isn't built in a single moment. It's earned over time through consistency, preparation, and showing up every day. And that's why each week we're recognizing one player whose performance embodies those same qualities. But you know what? I'm going to go a little bit rogue here from the copy that they gave us for the Everyday Icon. I'm going to make it the whole darn team. Yes, every last one of them. A 9-game win streak, tying their longest in decades. Yes, the entire team of the Philadelphia Phillies is the Everyday Icon for this week for Stance, because they have just been getting it done, as consistent as it gets. They've been changing the way to play the game, and Stance is changing the way the sock game is played. That's why you got to check them out. And the Icon collection for Stance is the best. Premium comfort, performance, and durability designed for whatever your day brings. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for 20% off your purchase. Stance, the official sock partner of Major League Baseball, and you can learn more at stance.com. Oh, Trey Turner, you're back in the crosshairs, buddy. And it's not just because the Phillies just lost one game and they've won 9 out of 10, but now that they've lost, it's, who can we blame this on? But it did give me a little bit of room to fit in something more negative. The Wheeler thing is worry. The playoff rotation stuff that we talked about is reality. Now the blame game. Okay, not necessarily, because I'm not really mad at anybody with the Phillies right now. Are there things that I wish they'd improve? Sure. Have we been living the damn good life with the Phillies? Yes, they just got off the longest win streak in all of Major League Baseball. And they have some of the best offensive numbers in August, and the pitching staff feels deeper than it has in a long, long time. But everyone's got to pull their weight. And Trey Turner has been getting covered for. I'll tell you that. You might not even know how bad he's been in the month of August. But last night, I saw a couple people coming around on it because he made two really bad misplays again in the field against the Mariners. Wouldn't have made a difference in the game. They didn't lose because of Trey Turner. And I'm not putting that loss on him. But he had one listed as an error, another one that absolutely should have been listed as an error that was not. And it got me thinking, well, he hasn't really been doing much offensively this month. So what can we get into on Trey Turner to figure out where he's been? So let's start with the offensive numbers because we know the defensive numbers. Like we almost don't even have to go into it at this point. He's one of the worst qualified defenders in baseball, if not the worst qualified defender. I will tip my cap. Not that I'm wearing one. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't have a hat on today. But if I did have a cap, I'd tip it. He has been better since they made all the defensive adjustments because there was a lot of talk about why is he the one staying. So I imagine he felt the pressure to perform. He's been better since they did that, but we started to see old Trey Turner again last night where he had two plays that he absolutely should have made, and he did not. But the defense, it almost pales in comparison to the offensive issues in the month of August. He is 18 for his last 82 at-bats. 18 hits in his last 82 at-bats. And that is for the month of August. That covers all of his time in this month. That is a 219 batting average. If you want to round up, call it 220 batting average. This is a dude who won the National League batting title last year. I've said that ad nauseum. He has not played up to that this season, though there have been slight stretches. You can't have him batting 220. Like the amount of money he's getting paid, what he's expected to be for this team. He's like the only guy who has been immune to the Luis Arraez effect. Trey Turner batting 220 since the start of the month of August is probably the worst offensive month that anybody on this team is having right now because everybody else is so darn hot. Here are some cumulative numbers for the month that show you. He has 4 doubles in the month of August. Not terrible. He only has 6 RBIs. He has 1 home run. We are sitting here. And it's not early August. It's not even mid-August. It is August 25th. And the guy has 4 doubles, 6 RBIs, and 1 home run. Not that he's a power hitter or an RBI creator, but at some point with how well this team's been playing, you would have expected him to accumulate some more numbers than that. He's been dreadful. And sure, the team is winning. And you should be happy with that. But he is getting, again, covered up by the success of the team. He's lucky that Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott are doing what they're doing. That Bryce Harper's on one of the hottest stretches you'll ever see somebody get on. That Kyle Schwarber's hitting a walk-off homer after you're down 4-0 in the ninth. Because if this team was, I don't know, kind of middling around and not red hot, we'd be pointing directly at Trey Turner as a guy who needs to pick it up. Hey, you're playing the Twins, the Cardinals, the Marlins. Now you're out against a team in Seattle that's had a really rough year. You should be winning ball games. But this ain't going to be the competition when you get to October. And if you're going to knock off the best, your best need to be at their best. And that includes Trey Turner. In fact, that points nearly exclusively towards Trey Turner with what the other guys have been doing. Schwarber, I guess, would be the other argument, but power hitters are streaky. I'll take my chances with him. Turner is, again, just falling back into a really, really rough spot for this month. I need September to be a really important one for him. Like, he's got to be great in September for me to have any faith in him in October, because he also hasn't been good in October moments since joining the Phillies. And in his career, he's left some to be desired in the postseason, even being on some winning teams. So the numbers are bad for Trey. The team is winning. As long as they continue to win, he will avoid some of the ire of the fan base. But I'm starting to sniff it out. And if I'm mentioning it, that means other people are, which means the fan base is going to start taking notice as well. You out there listening now have it in the back of your mind. Sorry if I incepted you to be mad at Trey Turner in spite of the team's success. But if there's a hitter that needs to pick it up right now on this team, it is Trey Turner, and there's no one else even close. And being that he's one of your top 3 highest paid hitters, that's not really an acceptable outcome. So As much as you are happy about the team's success, we can still demand from those star players, this guy's got to be better. Trey's that guy. We'll see how he does out on the West Coast swing. I'm not ready to say bench him or start somebody over. Like, we're not doing anything drastic because I don't want to mess with the mojo of a winning baseball team right now. It's on the individual to say, hey, this is crunch time. Normally fades in crunch time. Make this year different. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Nola goes to the mound tonight at 9:40 out in Seattle as they look to bounce back. We'll be reacting to that on tomorrow's episode and have plenty of more good stuff for you as we draw ever closer to the final month of the regular season for not just the Phillies, but all of Major League Baseball. So in the meantime, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that helps us out. I appreciate that very much. Check out the postcast with Mark Farzetta on the same YouTube feed and podcast feed as well. And I will talk to you tomorrow on our next episode.